Welcome back to Jared's Weekly Digest. I'm your host, Jared. How y'all doing? Me, personally, I'm overwhelmed. I've been attempting to keep up with US news to see what developments of the week I want to touch on in this week's video. But there are so many, and at this point, I honestly don't even want to think at all. If I were a conspiracy theorist, I would think this is what they want me to think. But I'm not. But this is a Weekly Digest show, so it's my job to comment on what happened in the week, even if it's against my will. Given that there's been so many developments this week, instead of covering just one in depth, I'm going to cover as many as I can. Trump blames DC helicopter plane crash on DEI initiatives. My thoughts? Yes, I do believe the helicopter crashed into the plane because of DEI initiatives. I think it's safe to assume the helicopter was piloted by a non-binary paraplegic who was rumored to have been kissing their biracial trans co-pilot at the time of the crash while listening to Chappell Rowan. Next, Trump aims to send 30,000 illegal immigrants to Guantanamo Bay. I find this one a little bit difficult to believe. I mean, where in the US are you going to find a prison with enough open space for 30,000 people? Not because we don't have enough prisons in the United States to accommodate that number of people, but I find it hard to believe that there's a prison in the United States that isn't already at max capacity. Next on the list, we have Trump imposing tariffs on Canada, China, and Mexico. Honestly, this might be my own ignorance, but my first thought is, what exactly are we importing from Canada? Obviously, the China and Mexico tariffs are going to hit the everyday consumer, but Canadian tariffs? Oh no! The price to stream Drake, Tate McRae, and The Weeknd are going to increase on Spotify. What will we do? Another development is Trump continues ICE raids across the country. Chicago has been targeted by Trump for numerous reasons. What I personally don't understand is how Dr. Phil comes into play. Being arrested at your own home feels like a nightmare in itself. But once Dr. Phil starts to interview you as you're in handcuffs, I would think the only logical thought would to be, I'm in a dream and I need to wake up. Because why in the world is Dr. Phil involved in these raids? I don't know! The last one on my list today is when Trump was asked about if he would visit the Philly plane crash site. Let's see if you can guess Trump's response. If you guessed, you want me to go swimming? You'd be correct. First off, that is the witty Trump I miss. Now we're just stuck with fascist Trump. Boring. My second thought is, how did two planes crash in the same week? Pivoting to something lighter. Do you guys think there's a difference between a cab driver and a Lyft/Uber driver? I certainly think so. For starters, cab drivers have no remorse for human life. Their only concern is getting their current rider out of their car as soon as possible. In many ways, I think cab drivers are like bugs. Bugs don't have complex thoughts or emotions and primarily rely on their God-given direction. For instance, a cab driver running through a red light is the same thing as a moth flying through a flame when it's trying to get as close to the light as possible. Lyft and Uber drivers are the exact opposite of a cab driver. In many cases, I think these drivers are trying to keep you in their car as long as possible. Asking if I'm buckled up, if the temperature's too hot, if I want a snack, if I want to talk. Last one's funny because we've been talking the whole ride and now you ask if I want to talk? I thought you already decided that for me. Honestly, a Lyft ride is more hospitable than a hotel these days. There are some instances where one type of driver is better than the other. Once I was going to a wedding and was already running late, so when I mistakenly ordered a Lyft instead of a cab, I certified myself as being late. The Lyft driver was great, don't get me wrong. Stopping at every stop sign for 3 seconds, yielding to pedestrians when they were trying to cross the road, and no texting while driving. They didn't even have their phone in their hands. But did I make it on time? No. Even if I was running late, which I was, if I had ordered a cab, I still would have made it on time to the wedding. Each time I got to a stop sign, I imagined how a cab would have just flown through it. Whenever someone was trying to cross the street, I imagined how the cab driver would have just honked instead of pausing for them to cross the street. And when the Lyft driver asked me why I was so dressed up, I wished so badly he was yelling into his phone in another language. This week, however, I got into a Lyft that acted like a cab driver. When I'm leaving the bars, I typically order a Lyft or an Uber because their driving is a lot more predictable than a cab driver. Not only was this driver trying to get me out of their car as fast as possible, but he was willing to get me out of the car any way possible. It didn't even need to be the passenger door. For all he cared, it could have been the windshield window. It honestly felt like he was mad at me the way we were swerving down the street. And there was literally no reason to swerve as we were going like 5 miles down a straight road. There was no turns. Help wanted, wedding planner needed. I'm getting married in a few short months, and it feels like I'm nowhere close to being ready. We got married in the fall, and we were so eager to get married, we thought we might as well get married in the spring. Maybe it's just the warm weather, but it feels like winter is already over and spring is here, which means my wedding is also here. What I've come to learn, the biggest challenge when planning a wedding is, well, planning it. Let me provide an example of how even the simplest task becomes very complex when planning a wedding. Where will the guests sit? Well, on chairs, of course. Does the venue provide chairs? Yes, so they'll sit on those. All set? No. Do the chairs provided have stains? Some do, but not all. What sorts of stains? Don't know. Doesn't matter. Can we use some of the chairs and source other chairs? Sure. Yes. Are we done now? No. Where will we get the additional chairs from? From an external vendor. What color will the chairs be? I don't know. Black. No. What do you mean no? The chairs can't be black? Black won't match the carpet. Okay, will brown match? Yes. Great. Are we done now? No. You must sign the contract with blue ink only, pay via pigeon, handle these chairs with silk gloves, confirm all guests are on Ozempic or Wegovy, but not Mounjaro, 60 days before the wedding to ensure all guests are under 266 pounds, the weight limit of the chairs, and every time I think I'm able to cross an item off the to-do list, another 10 items appear because of it. It seems never ending. I'm 100% confident this list will be done at some point. I'm just unsure of when. And I hope the when is before the wedding. The trend of me listening to only 2010 indie albums is over. I'm listening to current releases right now. This album came out in late 2024. It is Tyla's Tyla Plus album, an album that I've been playing every time I've been cooking a meal. I really enjoy Push to Start. I think this is a prime example of a successful earworm. I say this because it has rhythm that allows you to sing the lyrics even though you don't really know the lyrics. Pushing up my buttons, give me motivation. Wind me up, give me motivation. Are those the words? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It's catchy. FKA Twigs' 2025 album, Eusexual, is a very refreshing listen. FKA Twigs is an artist I think I've listened to before, but I cannot tell you a single song that they've made. Perfect Strangers, Striptease, and Room of Fools are currently my favorite. The whole album leans on synthetic sounds, and I'm really digging it. Last on my list is The Weeknd's newest release. This album's called Hurry Up Tomorrow. A few thoughts. Wake Me Up sounds like Thriller. I wish Until We're Skin and Bones was a fully developed song. And in general, I just really appreciate the overall dark ambience this album creates. I don't know if there's any plans to remix any of the songs in the album, but I think some of them can really benefit from a real cool techno reworking. I don't know if you noticed, but I recently separated my plants. I realized they were looking a little cramped in their previous pot, so I decided to replant them with a little bit of help. I'm still expecting some of them to die, just based on the way we've manhandled them, so if you don't see them in the next video, don't mention it.